The signal's promise. The signal arrived on a Tuesday. Dr. Ilara Chen was monitoring the Deep Space Array at the Arecibo complex when the patterns first appeared. Rhythmic, structured, undeniably artificial. Her heart raced as she cross-referenced the patterns against all known cosmic phenomena and human transmissions. Nothing matched. After 20 years of scanning the stars, humanity had finally received an answer. "Director Hassan," she called, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. "I think you need to see this." Within hours, observatories across the planet confirmed the signal. Within days, the world's governments had established a unified response protocol. Within weeks, Dr. Chen found herself standing before the United Nations Security Council, explaining to world leaders what they had found. The signal originates from HD 85,512 bits, approximately 36 light-years away. She explained, her laser pointer circling a seemingly unremarkable star on the projection behind her. "It contains mathematical sequences, followed by what we believe are complex instructions. This isn't just a greeting. It's a blueprint." The room erupted in questions. General Zhao of China's Space Command leaned forward. "A blueprint for what exactly?" "A ship," Chen answered simply. "Or at least, components of one. The designs utilize principles of physics we've theorized but never been able to implement. Quantum displacement engines, gravitational manipulators, materials that shouldn't be possible. So they're giving us technology." The American representative's voice carried equal parts hope and suspicion. "Why would an advanced civilization hand us the keys to the stars?" Chen hesitated. "That's what bothers me, Madam President. These aren't just advanced designs. They're desperate ones. The transmission pattern suggests urgency. The blueprints aren't a gift. They're a plea." In the following months, the brightest minds on Earth worked tirelessly to decode the alien mathematics. Dr. Chen led a team of xenolinguists, mathematicians, and theoretical physicists in the largest collaborative scientific endeavor in human history. The United Nations established Project Prometheus to coordinate the global response. 6 months after the signal's arrival, Dr. Chen made another breakthrough. The signal contained more than blueprints. It contained a message. "They call themselves the Luminarch," she announced to the Prometheus Directorate. "Their star is dying, but that's not why they sent the signal. Something called the Void Harbingers destroyed their civilization. The blueprints are for a defensive vessel, one that could save them. But the message was sent 36 years ago. They're already gone. Then why build the ship at all?" asked Director Hassan, the question hanging heavy in the room. Dr. Chen displayed the final decoded portion of the message. "Because they weren't the only target. The Harbingers move from star to star, consuming civilizations. According to their calculations, Earth is next." Silence fell over the room as the implications sank in. Humanity wasn't being offered a gift. They were being mourned and armed. Construction began immediately. The nations of Earth, faced with extinction, pooled their resources in unprecedented cooperation. The International Space Agency established a construction facility in Earth orbit, where the gravity manipulation components could be properly tested. Materials research labs across the planet worked on creating the exotic alloys specified in the blueprints. Not everyone embraced the project. Religious extremists proclaimed the ship an abomination. Conspiracy theorists claimed it was a trap designed to lure humans to their doom. Several attempts at sabotage were narrowly thwarted. Dr. Chen found herself working alongside Captain Marcus Reeves, a veteran astronaut selected to command the vessel once completed. Reeves was skeptical, pragmatic, with eyes that had seen the curvature of Earth and the vast emptiness beyond. "You really believe this ship can save us?" he asked Chen late one night as they reviewed the Luminarch propulsion designs. "Even if we build it correctly, we have no idea how to fight these Harbingers." "The Luminarch didn't send us these plans on a whim," Chen replied. "They chose Earth specifically. There must be something about us they believed could succeed where they failed." Human unpredictability, Reeves suggested with a wry smile. The one thing aliens always underestimate in the movies. Chen smiled back, but her eyes remained serious. The Luminarch were a hive consciousness. They thought as one. Perhaps they recognize that our individual perspectives might see solutions they couldn't. 18 months into construction, the true nature of the vessel began to take shape. It wasn't merely a warship. It was a dimensional anchor capable of stabilizing space-time against the distortions the harbingers used to consume stars and planets. The quantum displacement engine would allow it to match the harbinger's ability to slip between dimensional layers. They named it the Titan's Echo, a reflection of humanity's mythological defiance against cosmic powers. As the ship neared completion, instruments detected gravitational anomalies at the edge of the solar system. The Void Harbingers had arrived, decades earlier than the Luminarch had predicted. Earth had months, not years, to prepare. The launch date was moved forward. Systems remained untested, crews trained in simulation only. It was a desperate gamble with the fate of humanity at stake. The night before launch, Dr. Chen stood in the observation deck of the space station, looking at the gleaming hull of the Titan's Echo. Captain Reeves found her there, lost in thought. Having second thoughts, he asked, joining her at the viewport. Wondering if we understood the message correctly, she admitted. What if we missed something crucial? What if this ship isn't what we think it is? Reeves was silent for a moment. You know why they chose me to captain this mission. My psych evaluation said I have an uncommon comfort with uncertainty. We're heading into the unknown, Ilara. All we can do is trust that the best of humanity went into building this ship, and the best of humanity will be going aboard. I'm coming with you, Chen said suddenly. As the foremost expert on Luminarch communication, I've been assigned to the crew. Reeves raised an eyebrow. I thought you preferred your feet on solid ground. This is first contact, Marcus. Even if the Luminarch are gone, their legacy remains. Someone needs to understand what they were trying to tell us. She turned to face him fully. And if we fail, someone should be there to record humanity's last stand. The launch ceremony was brief. With the gravitational distortions growing stronger by the day, there was no time for lengthy speeches or ceremonies. The crew of 50, scientists, engineers, and military personnel from 18 nations, boarded the Titan's Echo with the hopes of humanity on their shoulders. As the ship pulled away from the station, Captain Reeves addressed the billions watching from Earth. We go to meet our future, whatever it may hold. We carry with us not just the technology of an alien race, but the spirit of our own. The Titan's Echo will show the stars what humanity is capable of. We will not go quietly into the dark. With those words, the quantum displacement engines engage. In a flash of light that briefly outshone the sun, the Titan's Echo vanished from Earth orbit, leaving behind a planet holding its collective breath. The signal had promised salvation. Now humanity would discover if that promise could be kept. Part 2. Forging the Impossible. The Titan's Echo materialized at the edge of the solar system, where instruments on Earth had detected the gravitational anomalies. The crew, still adjusting to the disorienting effects of quantum displacement, stared in awe at the main view screen. Before them stretched a tear in space itself, a gash in reality that pulsed with impossible colors and geometries that hurt the mind to contemplate. Within this dimensional rift, shadowy forms moved like oil through water, their shapes constantly shifting yet somehow conveying a sense of ancient malevolence. Recording all frequencies, Dr. Chen announced, her fingers flying across her console. The rift's radiation signature matches exactly what the Luminarch described. Those are definitely the Harbingers. Captain Reeves nodded grimly. And they're exactly where the Luminarch said they'd be. Dr. Kessler, what's the status of the dimensional anchor? The German physicist checked his readings. Operational, but untested. If the blueprints are correct, activating it should stabilize local spacetime, preventing the Harbingers from completing their dimensional transition. And if the blueprints are wrong? Asked Commander Rodriguez, the weapons officer. Then we learn very quickly, Reeves replied. Dr. Chen, any sign they've detected us? Before Chen could answer, the ship shuddered violently. Alarms blared as systems registered massive energy fluctuations. They've locked onto us with some kind of gravitational tether. Lieutenant Wong shouted from the navigation station. We're being pulled toward the rift. Activate counter thrusters, Reeves ordered calmly. Kessler, prep the anchor. Everyone else braced for dimensional instability. The Titan's Echo's engines strained against the invisible force dragging them toward the rift. The hull creaked under stresses it was never designed to withstand. Warning lights flashed across every console as systems approached critical failure. Counter thrusters failing, Wong reported. We can't break free. Then we don't fight it, Reeves decided. Cut engines. Divert all power to shields and the anchor. If they want us, let's give them more than they bargained for. The ship stopped resisting, accelerating rapidly toward the rift. The view screen filled with swirling cosmic energies as they approached the threshold between dimensions. Anchor ready, Kessler announced, his voice tight. Wait until we're inside, Reeves commanded. Let them bring us into their domain before we show our hand. The final moment before transition stretched like an eternity. Then reality itself seemed to twist around them. Crew members cried out as their senses struggled to interpret what they were experiencing. It was as if they were simultaneously everywhere and nowhere, their very atoms spread across multiple planes of existence. Now, Reeves shouted. Kessler slammed his palm on the activation panel. The dimensional anchor, the heart of the Luminarch technology, pulsed to life. A wave of energy radiated outward from the ship, imposing Earth-normal physics on the chaotic dimensional soup surrounding them. The effect was immediate and violent. The space around the ship stabilized, solidifying into a bubble of normal spacetime within the rift. Outside their protective bubble, the Harbinger's shadowy forms became more defined, more solid, and clearly agitated. It's working, Chen exclaimed. They're being forced to manifest physically within our dimensional parameters. The creatures outside were massive, like living voids in the shape of mantis-like beings, their bodies still partially existing in other dimensions. But now, they were vulnerable, forced to interact with normal spacetime by the anchor's effect. Weapons online, Rodriguez reported. I have targeting solutions on 3 Harbingers. Hold fire, Reeves ordered. Dr. Chen, any attempt at communication? Chen studied her readings. They're emitting some kind of energy pattern. It could be communication, or it could be them trying to disrupt our systems. I can't. Wait. She froze, staring at her screen. Captain, I'm receiving a Luminarch signal. From inside the rift. That's impossible, Kessler argued. The Luminarch were destroyed. The signal's degraded, but it's definitely using their mathematical patterns, Chen insisted. It's coming from there. She pointed to a distant point within the dimensional rift, barely visible through the swarm of agitated Harbingers. Something was reflecting light differently than the surrounding chaos, a structure of some kind, floating within the rift. A Luminarch vessel, Rodriguez suggested. Or a trap, Wong countered. Reeves studied the distant object. Dr. Chen, your best assessment. Chen took a deep breath. The Luminarch sent us these blueprints for a reason. I think they're still out there, or at least some of them are. They couldn't fight the Harbingers in normal space, so they retreated into the dimensional rift itself. But they need our help to finish what they started. The Harbingers were now circling the Titan's Echo, probing the bubble of normal spacetime maintained by the anchor. Occasionally, one would touch the boundary, recoiling as if burned when forced to fully materialize. They're afraid of physical form, Kessler realized. In their natural state, they exist across multiple dimensions simultaneously. The anchor forces them to exist in just one, our reality. Which makes them vulnerable, Rodriguez added, but they still outnumber us hundreds to 1. Reeves made his decision. Set course for the Luminarch signal. Maintain anchor field at maximum. If the Harbingers want to fight in our dimension, we'll give them one. The Titan's Echo pushed forward through the rift, its engines functioning normally within the bubble of stabilized spacetime. The Harbingers scattered before them, clearly unwilling to be caught in the anchor's effect. But as the ship progressed deeper into the rift, more Harbingers appeared, gathering in swarms that darkened the already bizarre landscape. "They're coordinating," Chen warned, "establishing a blockade between us and the Luminarch signal." "They don't want us to reach whatever's sending that signal," Reeves concluded, "which means that's exactly where we need to go. Rodriguez, arm all weapons. Kessler, can we extend the anchor's field?" "Not without risking system failure. The technology is operating at maximum capacity." "Then we punch through the old-fashioned way." Reeves opened the ship-wide comm. "All hands, prepare for combat. We're about to remind these interdimensional nightmares why humans have been feared by every predator we've ever encountered." The Titan's Echo accelerated toward the Harbinger blockade, weapons charged and ready. The ancient creatures, forced into physical form by the anchor's effect, now faced something they had never encountered in countless eons of hunting through the stars: a prey that fought back. The ship's main cannons fired, streams of superheated plasma illuminating the dimensional rift with blinding light. Where the plasma struck, Harbingers shrieked in frequencies that made the hull vibrate. Their partially materialized bodies burned away, leaving behind nothing but dissipating energy. But for every Harbinger destroyed, 10 more took its place, swarming around the anchor's field, looking for weaknesses. One found a fluctuation in the field's integrity and pushed through, materializing partially on the bridge. Half in this reality, half in another, it reached for Kessler with limbs that seemed to exist in impossible configurations. Lieutenant Commander Sato reacted instantly, drawing her sidearm and firing. The bullets passed through the creature's interdimensional body without effect, until they hit the parts forced into physical reality by the anchor. The Harbinger convulsed, its form destabilizing before it collapsed into a puddle of rapidly evaporating dark matter. "Seal that breach," Reeves ordered as Kessler scrambled to adjust the anchor's field. "We can hurt them, people. Focus on the parts that look solid." The battle intensified as the Titan's Echo pushed deeper into the Harbinger swarm. The ship's weapons found their targets with increasing accuracy as the crew learned to predict the creature's materialization patterns. But the strain on the ship's systems was mounting. Warning lights flashed across engineering consoles as power fluctuations threatened the anchor's stability. "Captain, we're losing the anchor," Kessler reported, his voice tight. "Another 5 minutes at most." "We need to reach that signal before the field collapses," Reeves responded. "Divert all non-essential power to engines and the anchor." "Sir," Chen interrupted, "the signal is changing. It's like it's responding to our presence. I think the Luminarch are trying to help us." New mathematical patterns flowed across her screen, patterns she recognized from the original blueprints, but with subtle differences. "They're sending modifications for the anchor," she realized. "Kessler, I'm forwarding these to your station. I think they'll help stabilize the field." The German physicist studied the incoming data, his expression shifting from skepticism to wonder. "These adjustments, they're brilliantly simple. Why didn't we see this before?" "Because they're not just giving us technology anymore," Chen said quietly. "They're teaching us how to use it." As Kessler implemented the modifications, the anchor's field strengthened, expanding outward in a sudden pulse that caught dozens of Harbingers unprepared. The creatures screamed as they were forced fully into physical form, their bodies unable to maintain coherence in a single dimension. The path to the Luminarch signal cleared momentarily. Through the chaos of battle, the crew of the Titan's Echo caught their first clear glimpse of what awaited them: a massive crystalline structure floating in the heart of the rift, pulsing with the same rhythmic patterns as the original signal that had reached Earth. "That's no ship," Reeves murmured. "That's a city. Or what's left of one," Chen added softly. "Captain, I think we found the last refuge of the Luminarch civilization." As the Titan's Echo approached the crystalline structure, The Harbinger's attacks grew more desperate. They sacrificed themselves by the dozens, hurling their partially materialized bodies against the anchor's field in an attempt to disrupt it. The ship shuddered under the impacts, but the modified field held. "Final approach," Wang announced, establishing orbit around the structure. The crystalline city grew larger on the view screen, revealing intricate geometries that seemed to fold in on themselves in ways that shouldn't be possible. At its center, a spire of pulsing light reached out toward them, the source of the signal. "They're hailing us," Chen said with wonder in her voice. "Captain, the Luminarch want to speak with us." Reeves straightened in his chair. Humanity's first true contact with an alien civilization, and it happens in a dimensional rift while fighting off cosmic horrors. "Put them through, Doctor. Let's see what they have to say." The view screen shifted, displaying not an alien face, but a complex pattern of light and mathematical symbols that somehow conveyed emotion, gratitude, relief, and urgency all at once. Chen's translation software worked frantically to interpret the message. As the patterns resolved into human language, the crew of the Titan's Echo finally learned why the Luminarch had reached across 36 light-years to find them, and why humanity's future now depended on what they would do next. Beyond the veil, the Luminarch message unfolded in patterns of light and mathematics, translated into words that echoed across the bridge of the Titan's Echo. "You have come. We hoped, but could not know. The Harbingers have hunted us across 1,000 worlds, driven us into this between space where we cling to existence. We sent our knowledge to many worlds, but you are the first to answer. You are the first to build. You are the first to come." Dr. Chen worked the translation console, her fingers dancing across the controls as she refined the algorithms. "They're a collective consciousness," she explained. "They think in unified patterns. It makes translation challenging, but mathematically precise." "Ask them why they chose Earth," Reeves instructed. "Why us specifically?" Chen relayed the question. The crystalline structure pulsed with new patterns. "Your species contains a paradox we have observed in no other. You are both singular and collective, each mind distinct, yet capable of cooperation. The Harbingers cannot comprehend your nature, as we ourselves struggle to. This gives you strength they cannot counter." Rodriguez leaned forward. "They're saying our individualism is a weapon." "More than that," Chen replied, studying the patterns. "The Luminarch are a true hive mind. They can't conceive of individual action. The Harbingers are the opposite extreme, purely singular predators that never cooperate. Humans exist between these extremes. We can think as individuals but act as a group. And that scares the hell out of both sides," Reeves concluded. "Ask them how we defeat the Harbingers. The anchor won't hold forever." The answer came in a flood of mathematical equations and engineering specifications, modifications to the dimensional anchor that would expand its effect exponentially. Kessler reviewed the data, his expression grave. "Captain, they're suggesting we destabilize the anchor in a controlled manner. The resulting cascade would force everything within the rift to exist in a single-dimensional state permanently, including the Luminarch," Chen realized. "They're asking us to sacrifice them to stop the Harbingers." The bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. The alien pattern swirled on the screen, waiting for humanity's response. "There has to be another way," Reeves said firmly. "Dr. Chen, ask if we can modify the anchor to exempt the Luminarch structure." Chen relayed the question. The response was immediate and definitive. "The dimensional boundaries cannot discriminate. All will be affected. We have accepted our fate. Our civilization is already lost. Only this fragment remains. But yours may yet survive if the Harbingers are stopped here." Outside the ship, the swarm of Harbingers had regrouped. They began a new attack, not on the Titan's Echo directly, but on the dimensional fabric around it. Space itself warped and buckled as the creatures attempted to tear open new rifts, bypassing the anchor's protection. "They're trying to create a passage directly to Earth," Wang reported, alarm clear in her voice. If they succeed, the anchor won't stop them. Reeves stood, his decision made. Dr. Kessler, begin implementing the Luminarch modifications. Dr. Chen, tell our allies we accept their sacrifice and will honor their memory. Captain, Chen protested, we can't just. We can, and we must. Reeves cut her off. But we're not leaving them behind. He turned to face the entire bridge crew. The Luminarch sent their knowledge across the stars because they saw something in humanity worth saving. We're not just going to save Earth, we're going to save a piece of their legacy too. He gestured to the crystalline structure displayed on the view screen. That's not just a city, it's their collective memory, their entire civilization's knowledge and history. Dr. Chen, how much data storage do we have available? Chen blinked, catching on to his plan. We could clear the secondary cores, maybe 30% of their data, at most. Make it happen. Tell the Luminarch we want to preserve as much of their knowledge and culture as we can. Rodriguez, coordinate with engineering to boost our transmission capacity. I want everything we can salvage before we trigger the anchor cascade. As the crew rushed to implement his orders, Reeves addressed the Luminarch directly, Chen translating his words into their mathematical language. Your sacrifice will not be forgotten. Humanity will carry your knowledge to the stars. Your people will live on through what you've taught us. The response came not in words, but in a sudden surge of data, flowing directly into the Titan's echo systems. Cultural records, scientific discoveries, philosophical concepts unlike anything humans had conceived, the essence of the Luminarch civilization pouring into human computers at the speed of thought. They're giving us everything, Chen whispered, watching the transfer progress. Their entire history. Outside, the Harbingers sensed what was happening. Their attacks intensified, the dimensional fabric around the ship stretching to breaking point. Warning alarms blared as systems throughout the ship approached overload. Data transfer at 25%, Chen reported, estimating 10 minutes to completion. We don't have 10 minutes, Wang warned. Dimensional integrity failing. A decision point had arrived sooner than expected. Reeves looked at the progress bar on Chen's console, then at the tactical display showing the Harbingers' increasingly successful attempts to break through to Earth. Continue the transfer as long as possible, he ordered. Dr. Kessler, prepare to initiate the cascade on my mark. Sir, Kessler said hesitantly, once triggered, we'll have approximately 30 seconds to clear the rift before the cascade reaches critical mass. If we wait too long, then we'll cut it close, Reeves replied grimly. This might be our only chance to preserve something of the Luminarch. We owe them that much. The next several minutes stretched into an eternity of tension. The ship shuddered continuously as Harbingers broke partially through the weakening dimensional barriers, only to be repelled by the ship's weapons. The data transfer crawled toward completion, while Kessler finalized the anchor modifications. Transfer at 41%, Chen announced. It's slowing as our systems approach capacity. That'll have to be enough. Reeves decided as a particularly violent dimensional rupture sent several crew members sprawling. Dr. Kessler, initiate the cascade. Lieutenant Wang, plot the fastest course out of the rift. Kessler's fingers flew across his console, implementing the final Luminarch modifications. The dimensional anchor began to pulse with new energy, its stable field transforming into an expanding wave of dimensional normalization. Cascade initiated, Kessler confirmed. 25 seconds to critical mass. Breaking orbit, Wang reported. Maximum burn toward rift exit. The Titan's echo pulled away from the crystalline structure, engines straining at full power. Behind them, the dimensional anchor's effect began to spread, forcing permanence onto a realm of flux. The Harbingers shrieked as they were caught in the wave, their bodies solidifying completely, unable to escape back into the higher dimensions where they normally existed. 15 seconds to critical mass. Kessler counted down. We're cutting it very close, Captain. The ship rocketed toward the boundary of the rift, pursued by the expanding cascade effect. On the view screen, They could see the Luminarch structure being enveloped by the wave, its crystalline geometries settling into configurations possible in normal spacetime. 10 seconds. 9. 8. Almost there, Wong urged, her hands white-knuckled on the navigation controls. 7. 6. 5. The rift boundary appeared ahead, a threshold between dimensional chaos and the normal space of the solar system. 4. 3. All hands brace for transition. Reeves commanded. 2. 1. The Titan's echo burst through the rift boundary, just as the cascade reached critical mass. Behind them, the entire dimensional pocket collapsed in on itself, sealing away both the Harbingers and the last remnants of the Luminarch civilization forever. The sudden transition back to normal space threw the ship into a tumbling roll. Emergency systems engaged automatically, stabilizing their trajectory, but not before several crew members were thrown from their stations. As the chaos subsided, Reeves pulled himself back into his chair. Status report. Hull integrity at 68%. Rodriguez reported, wiping blood from a cut on his forehead. Weapons offline. Life support functional. Engines at 40% capacity. Came the report from engineering. We can make it home, but it won't be quick. The anchor? Reeves asked. Completely burned out, Kessler confirmed. The technology is intact, but the power systems were pushed well beyond design tolerances. Reeves turned to Chen and the Luminarch data. She checked her console, relief washing over her face. Secure. We managed to salvage 43% of their transmitted knowledge. It will take decades to fully analyze and understand. But they live on, Captain. At least in some form. The view screen showed empty space where the rift had been. No trace remained of the dimensional tear, the Harbingers, or the Luminarch. Only the data in the Titan's Echo's computers proved that any of it had ever existed. Set course for Earth, Reeves ordered quietly. Let's go home. The journey back took 3 weeks. Emergency repairs kept the ship functioning, though barely. When they finally achieved orbit around Earth, they were greeted by a fleet of vessels. Everything from military craft to civilian ships, all come to welcome home the crew that had saved humanity. The debriefings lasted months. Scientists and military officials pored over every second of sensor data, every scrap of information about the Harbingers and the dimensional rift. But the true treasure was the Luminarch archive, a gift of knowledge from a civilization that had sacrificed itself so others might live. 1 year after their return, Captain Reeves and Dr. Chen stood on the observation deck of the new International Space Academy. Below them, cadets trained to serve on the next generation of ships, vessels that would incorporate both human innovation and Luminarch principles. They're calling it the Luminarch Initiative, Chen said, watching young officers studying holographic displays of ship designs. The first true deep space exploration program. Exploration, not defense, Reeves noted with satisfaction. That's progress. Chen nodded. The Harbingers were a singular threat. The Luminarch data shows no evidence of other hostile species, just a universe full of wonders we're only beginning to understand. And now we'll face that universe carrying the legacy of 2 civilizations, Reeves said. Human determination and Luminarch wisdom. A paradox the universe has never seen before, Chen agreed with a smile. I think that's exactly what the Luminarch were counting on when they sent us those blueprints. Outside the viewport, the first of the new ships prepared for its maiden voyage, sleeker than the Titan's Echo, more elegant in its design, but bearing the same spirit of discovery and defiance that had carried humanity beyond the veil and back again. Its name was visible on the gleaming hull, Luminarch Legacy. The signal had promised salvation. Humanity had answered, and in doing so, found not just survival but purpose. The stars were waiting, and humanity, carrying the torch of 2 civilizations, was finally ready to meet them.